this video, we're going to look at fractions, decimals, and percentages, and how we can possibly interchange between fractions, decimals, and percentages, or vice versa. You can go from percentage to decimals and decimals to percentages. All right. So starting with fractions. Now, fractions are defined as a part of a whole number, right? Some part of a whole thing. Okay. For example, I've got a cylinder, right? And it's half filled with water, right? So this is half filled with water. That means I can represent this as a fraction. Even though it is half filled, I can represent it as 1 out of 2, right? Which is half. Right? Because there are two individual parts, and we have only one part filled. Okay? If it's filled up to the top, we can write it as 2 over 2, which is exactly 1, right? So fractions are just the representation of the part of a whole number, right? Now, how can you go from fractions to decimals? Now, once you have represented a number as a fraction, for example, let's say we have a fraction 7 whole by 2, all right? Now I have this fraction. I know 7 is being divided by 2. That means if I do the division, 7 divided by 2, so 2 3s are 6, and we're gonna left with 1. We're gonna point here, gonna put a 0 here because we got a decimal here. Now 2 5s are 10, right? So that's how we convert any fraction to decimal. Now there are two possible fractions. Either you can get a improper fraction, or you're gonna get a proper fraction. Now what's the difference between improper fraction and proper fraction? Improper fraction is a fraction whose numerator is bigger than the denominator. For example, this 7 by 2. This is an example of improper fraction. Why? Because 7 is in numerator and it's bigger than the denominator, right? Similarly, if you have how we categorize proper fraction, let's say 1.5, 1 by 2. Now here we got 1 as the numerator and 2 as the denominator. That means this is a perfect example of a proper fraction, right? Now going from fractions to decimals is way much easier when you do the division or you just memorize the stuff, right? Now there is a third category in fractions, which is a mixed number, right? A mixed number is represented as when you have a whole number together with a fraction, 3 whole 1 by 2, right? So this is a perfect example of a mixed number. Why? Because it got a whole number as well and it got a fraction as well, right? And how do you convert a mixed number to a decimal? You're just gonna say, I have 3 as a whole number and half as a decimal, so I will write 3.5, right? And there's a quicker way as well, like you can multiply 2 with 3 and then add the result with 1, right? And whole divided by 2, so 3 times 2 is 6, 6 plus 1 is 7, so it becomes 7 by 2, and 7 by 2 is exactly equals to 3.5, right? So that's how we convert mixed number, proper fraction, or an improper fraction to a decimal.